Hello and welcome to a new video. Today I'm here to talk to you about my recent reads and what I've been reading this year so far. As you may have noticed, there's not a lot of reviews in this channel as of late, and that's mainly because I already explained that I was in London and I had anxiety to deal with. So then I came back, I have vacations, then I went back to university, already back home. And because we only do a semester abroad, not a year abroad. And then I came back and just like the amount of work hit me like a brick. There was a lot of reading, but there was also a lot of I still had to deal with my newfound sources of anxiety. So the videos were a little bit not a lot of videos as per usual. I know I'm not the most constant person uploading videos. I am painfully aware of that. I do want to talk to you about all the books I've read this year so far, starting with the first one, going through my mandatory reading for university, straight to what I'm currently reading. That being said, let's jump right in. So in January I read 2 books. Yeah, the third one doesn't quite count, and I will tell you why when I get there. But the first book was a Portuguese one, so you won't know who this is, but this is a book published by a comedian in Portugal. He's also a teacher. He's really funny and really smart. Even teachers in my degree use texts of him because he usually does a lot of play on words and uses a lot of linguistics and things that really interest my degree, of course, because I study cultures and languages. This book, it was his most recent one. It's by Ricardo Araújo Pereira. If you're Portuguese, you know. And if you're Brazilian, you should know. He's been writing for a newspaper in São Paulo, and he's getting recognition in Brazil as well, so check him out if you're in Brazil. Ricardo Araújo Pereira is a really funny comedian, and this is his most recent book. It's called Reacionário com dois Cs. This is a play on words because we had this language agreement change. We do have this academy that decides how to properly write our language. The new agreement is not accepted by a lot of people, including a lot of my teachers, including myself personally, not professionally. I have to, but personally I don't agree with it. And so he decided that that would be the title because the word reactionary has changed in this new agreement. This is a compilation of his chronicles for a newspaper here in Portugal. It's so funny. It's so it shows such an understanding of our culture, of our people, and that's really what a comedian does, a good comedian, and also someone that understands how to write comedy, how to write funny things, but that are also very clever, because I personally think that the best comedy is clever, and his comedy is very clever. If you're Portuguese, I would highly recommend you pick up any of his books. It is signed because I did meet him and I got it signed. The second book I read, I picked up in London. It's in a hall. I'm gonna link it around here. I think it's there. And this is, at the time, it was Sophie Kinzella's most recent book. It's my Not So Perfect Life. And this is hilarious. First, it features Katie, who pictures herself with a perfect life, a flat in London, a great job, and she posts about that on social media. So this book actually integrates social media in itself, but deals with this new society we have now, where you post things on social media all the time, and they may not be your actual life, but the life you kind of want to portray that you have. So she gets into a lot of trouble, as all the protagonists of Sophie Kinsella, a lot of misunderstandings, a lot of funny situations. I enjoy this book so much. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, as well as to the previous book, but it's more like a 4.5 because these 2 books I want to pick up more from these authors, of course, and it's so funny. I mean, even the cover is funny because it's raining on her and she's drenched. The best part is that she gets sacked and she moves to the countryside, back home to Somerset, and it's hilarious. The entire setup, Sophie Kinsella does the most hilarious, puts the characters in the most hilarious situations, and it's amazing. I would highly recommend you pick up any of her books. My favorite is I've Got Your Number, but if you want to pick up something more recent, this one, comes highly recommended from me. The next one was a big disappointment. I actually gave it 1 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I had this in my library since before I moved to Brazil, so way too long. Because when I picked up, I thought it was a historical romance. It ain't. It's it's a romance book, you know, literal romance, like erotica, set in the medieval times. But I mean, she takes a lot of creative license, because it ain't how it happened in those times. And there's a lot of problematic sentences as well. So this is a protector about Madeline Hunter. Since I purchased this book, I have realized what type of book this is, and since then I have realized that I do not enjoy this type of books. I tried it, and it was awful. So much problematic sentences, so much like she's strong because she doesn't want to sleep with him, and then he wants to kind of force himself on her, but then she's like attracted to that kind of shit. And so I DNF'd. With no regrets. I will literally, I want to sell it, take it away from my house. It's so bad. Never again read anything by this author, who is very published in Portugal, and I just, no. The next books are my mandatory reading for the semester. This semester I had 4 classes. The most interesting class of them all was the final class of my degree. And you had 2 choices of teachers, and each of them have a different program. My teacher that I chose, because I already had classes with her, chooses post-colonial studies. Now, her approach was to go back to all the texts, and you can read them through the post-colonial lens. Let's call it that. We went back to the great classic, that is Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. Now, I purchased this in the Oxford World's Classics, because this book, it's not easy to read, it's not natural for me to read. I'm not even native in English, so you can imagine. So it's very good that it has very good notes, but it's also more readable than I thought it would be, since it is like the first novel in the English language or something like that. Very interesting to see where all the references come from, like how many movies are inspired by this sort of narrative, how many books are secretly like references to this. From movies like Castaway to Lord of the Flies to Life of Pi to everything. I enjoyed reading this book. I mean, I enjoyed studying this book. It's very problematic if you read it through the normal lens. So, but if you actually analyze it, it's very interesting to analyze how they see things and what's in there, like the hints to religion. Where do Portuguese show up? How does it react to other sorts of colonization? Very, of course, a very troubling topic and very problematic time, but very interesting to study, of course. The next book in the same vein, so again, there were 4 books for my class, was Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson, the original. So we also studied this, we read Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson, very enjoyable to read and very interesting again to see where all the references come from. Black Sails, which I'm watching right now, like, thank God I read this now, because now I know who is who, and I mean, every time they mentioned Captain Flint, I was like, yes, Toby Stephens. Besides that, and my teacher got the joke, which is amazing. Again, very interesting. I like that Robert Louis Stevenson already like questioned a lot of the things that were going on in the Victorian times. I already read one of his books with that teacher as well, which was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So she's very interested in the author, and we kind of became too. It was really interesting to read, to study. There was a lot of interesting topics around it. A lot of people in the end did an essay like mixing this with like Peter Pan or stuff like that. I didn't do that. I studied the next book. But yeah, so this is really cool, and I'm really glad I read it because now I get the references. I did buy it in Discover and not like the fancy Penguin English Library ones, because I want this set to be underlined and stuff, and also because it's for this class. And so I just got in this edition because I thought it would be more, I don't know, suitable. That being said, the next book it's a very underhyped book, but this author is now coming back to life because it's her 100th anniversary. Her name is Muriel Sparks. She is Scottish. This is not her most famous work. There's nothing on her, so I basically did an entire essay with 0 references in this part. I must say I did get a good grade because I did decide to work on something that I thought was really interesting. Again, because the theme of this class is post-colonial studies and Robinsonades, the books inspired in Robinson Crusoe, this is called Robinson by Muriel Spark. Interestingly enough, they end up in a lost island in the Azores, or on the way to Azores, which is a Portuguese archipelago. There's a lot of mention of Portugal here, which is interesting because Muriel Spark is a Catholic Scottish author, which is, again, in the English language, it's a thing, like it's a specific type of authors. Very, very interesting book, very gripping. I really surprisingly enjoyed reading this book because I was thinking it was going to be very dry and very boring. It was not. It was also a joy to explore because she fills it with references. It's so rich of references and metaphors. The end is underwhelming, but in the end, like the real end, it's not underwhelming. I thought it was really cool. Yeah, so I studied Muriel Spark's Robinson. I really enjoyed this and I highly recommend you go and check out Muriel Spark. She's highly undervalued because she didn't become canonic and she wasn't included in the literary canon for many years because all the guys who decided that were guys, and there's not a lot about her in the like academia world even, so really interesting author. And the last one for this class was Foe by G.M. Coetzee. He is the winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature, author of Disgrace and Waiting for the Barbarians. And this is again another take on the colonizer's story, directly a retale of Robinson Crusoe, even if you don't notice that in the beginning. Really interesting take on this. Coetzee is a South African writer, but he is from white descent, but not from the British, from the Dutch in South Africa. I am not an expert on that part, but it was really interesting to read this and like how he reinvents the story and how he bases it on a woman. So in Robinson Crusoe we know there's no woman. Here the main character is Susan Barton. This is a more modern book, so the author is still alive. You can see how modern it is, and it's a really interesting take on a very classic colonizer's story. That was the last book I read this year. I did read Lady Susan, which is a very short book by Jane Austen, who inspired the movie Love and Friendship with Kate Beckinsale recently, which I adored watching on the cinema, and you should definitely watch it if you haven't yet. It's so funny. And the movie here really is an upgrade on the book because the book is just letters. Still, the writing has beautiful sentences and so funny and sharp, and I adored it. I gave that one 4 out of 5 stars. And all of these, so Treasure Island and Robinson I gave 4 out of 5 stars. Robinson Crusoe, although enjoyable, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I didn't actually finish Foe yet, I just know it's really interesting and I would recommend you go and check that author out for everyone. What I am currently reading is Heroes of Olympus. I am reading The House of Hades. This is the 4th installment in this series. It's ginormous. I love these characters. I won't spoil anything. I am reading this. I have already purchased the last one, Blood of Olympus. I am so excited. And also sad, because this story is getting real dark real soon. And hopefully I will finish it before the booktubeathon, because I'm reading really slowly because I'm at home. I'm not going anywhere this summer particularly. So I'm watching a lot of TV shows and movies because I want to make the most of the time I'm home with computer and internet and stuff. Those are all the books I have been reading this year and that I'm currently reading. What has been your favorite book this year so far? Mine was probably Not So Perfect Life by Sophie Kinsella. Yeah, Sophie Kinsella is the queen of my life now. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, give it a thumbs up or subscribe, and I'll see you soon in the new one. Bye!